everybody knows the guest we have on today, but I thought before we get into the questions for you, Karan, I will do a little bit of an introduction. So it's great to have you on, and I have to say that ever since I was a young lad, I actually followed our guest's journey. He was someone who actually moved from India to the UK at roughly about the same age that I did. And through hard work and dedication, actually ended up at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, Cambridge. And look, it was from there that he launched an even more ambitious and audacious plan, should I say, to create one of the world's leading beer brands, Cobra Beer. And good news is I don't have one sitting with me at 8 a.m. on a Friday morning, but I certainly will have one by the evening. And Cobra Beer really put him on the map as literally one of the UK's top entrepreneurs. Now, I know this show is all about creating role models. And so I feel it really appropriate to admit that in many ways this person has been mine. And I've tried to follow him in his footsteps, from his love and passion of education to his passion for marketing and brand building. Now, the truth is that he really doesn't stop. And every year, he seems to be getting harder and harder to keep up with. Just last year, he was appointed the president of the CBI. And that's in addition to his political duties as a lord, a university chancellor, and the chairman of Cobra Beer Partnership. So, Lord Karan Bilimoria, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on with us this morning. Before handing over to Mark for the first question, I just want to talk a little bit about a special giveaway we have for all our participants this morning. It's a chance to win a £50 Amazon voucher. So what you need to do before the show finishes, and this is really important, so before it finishes, you need to post on LinkedIn your favorite quote from Karan, tagging myself and Mark. And then by the end of the show, we will close up and Jordan will announce the winner of the £50 Amazon voucher giveaway later on next week. Mark, over to you to the first question.
Thanks, Richie, and fabulous to have you here with us, Lord Karan. So we're going to start with a nice softener, which is it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy world. So how have the last few months been for you?
Firstly, Richie, thank you so much for asking me to do this, and Mark, thank you. And as well, it's to you, Jordan. Now, the last 5 months have been surreal, have been challenging, have been uncertain. They are, for the whole world, I've never seen anything like this. I don't think anyone else has. I started Cobra Beer 30 years ago in a recession. I've lived through recessions during our journey. I've lived through many challenges. I've nearly lost my business 3 times, but never have I come across a situation as globally challenging that has affected everyone, everywhere, and right through the supply chain, reverberating all the way through, not just domestically, but globally. So it is extraordinary, the circumstance we're living in, and a health crisis combined with an economic crisis going hand in hand. So yeah, totally challenging. And in many ways, I see myself in this new role as president of the Confederation of British Industry, of CBI, is a wonderful role at any time, let alone at a time like this when one is in a whirlwind, dealing with all the issues, which I'm more than happy to talk about.
Karan, it's interesting. You talk about all these various issues. What are the things that are top of your mind right now that, say, British industry is currently going through that you're trying to tackle through?
To me, the most important thing is getting the economy back and running, firing on all cylinders as soon as possible. And the challenge there is you have a health crisis, and the health has got to come first. But now we've come to a situation where I think we've made huge progress. You think back 5.5 months ago, in the middle of March, when the economic measures were announced by the Chancellor, when then subsequently we went into lockdown, 23rd of March, that time will live in our memories forever. And the world changed. And you look at then where the worry of having, seeing those awful visual pictures, films from Italy of patients in corridors with hospitals overflowing. And we were terrified that our NHS system and our hospitals and our critical bed capacity would not be able to cope with the pandemic. And we acted very quickly. And many lessons were learned straight away. So first, what we learned was government working on its own doesn't work. What works is collaboration. And I always believed in that. Even when I started my business and growing my business, I've always believed if you have a partnership mindset, is far, far better than if you try and think about it as me and going alone and trying to do everything on your own. So my wife is South African, and this wonderful African saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this was no better demonstrated than when the critical bed capacity had to be addressed, the NHS working with the armed forces, including the Gurkhas, working with the Excel Centre, the private sector, working with University of East London, all together, and you create a 4,000 bed critical bed capacity hospital in 9 days. Now, we looked at China and we said, oh, wow, look, only China could build a hospital in 10 days. We did it in 9 days. And then we've rolled them out around the country. And what we showed then, that in no time do we come anywhere close to exceeding our critical bed capacity. And then when it comes to treatments, then when it comes to dealing with this disease, our testing, we didn't have the testing capability. Now we've ramped up our testing capability. And to be one of the key issues looking ahead, can we have mass testing where you can have affordable testing on a regular basis so people can find out whether they've got the disease or not? And if not, you carry on with life as normal. In America, they've just introduced, just now it was announced, just like yesterday I got the news, that Abbott Laboratories have got a $5 instant at-home saliva 20-minute result test, and they're producing 50 million of those. If we can have the ability to do that, people can test themselves and life can carry on. So we need to get the economy working back. And I think treatments-wise, we've made huge progress with treatments on how to deal with this disease. Vaccines, we're making good progress. We've now got to get schools back up and running. We've got to get people back to work.
So you've been dealing with a lot, it's fair to say. And as president of the CBI, it's probably beholden on you to be optimistic and full of solutions and driving things forward. So that's a lot on you. How do you, and this is a question actually that Phil's just raised in the Q&A, so good timing, Phil. How do you maintain your energy and resilience through that burden?
Well, you know, the thing about energy and resilience, I always believe that if you love what you're doing, then you find the energy. And my wife says, never, ever complain that you're doing too much because it's your choice. I mean, the fact that I run Cobra Beer, I love Cobra Beer. I to this day, if I walk past a supermarket, I have to run in to check it's on the shelves. Is it in stock? What, you know, I have to do it. I just love it. I'm passionate about it. And to me, Cobra is just, I don't even feel we've started. We've got so much further to go. We're manufacturing here in Holland and in Belgium. We've got, with my joint venture partners, Molson Coors, 3 breweries in India. We export to about 40 countries, but we're just scratching the surface. This brand, I want it to be a global beer brand, and I want to get there, and I love the brand. You know, with being Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, what a privilege to be Chancellor of one of the 3 or 4 largest universities in this country, Russell Group University, one of the top 100 universities in the world. I'm so proud of that university and what we're doing there. Talking about testing, we're at the cutting edge of the testing research. The Premier League, we've just finished the football season without cancelling a single match. And that was done. I had a little role to play in introducing the testing company to our scientists in Birmingham who monitored the testing of the players, the staff, the referees, the coaches, to enable those matches to carry on. And it's a test case that how you can get on, and we finished the season. So Birmingham is such a privilege. I mean, I've just stepped down after 5 years as chair of the Cambridge University Judge Business School, one of the top business schools in the world. What a privilege to do that. And I'm now an honorary ambassador. And in the House of Lords, I love the House of Lords. I can't wait for us to get back to normal debate. At the moment, we're operating on a hybrid basis. We're limited 30 people in the chamber, where you can't intervene, where you can't challenge, where you can't have a debate. You can get through the motions, you can make your points, but it's not the same as being in that chamber and having that debate face to face. I can't wait for that to start again. So yeah, and the CBI role is, again, an enormous privilege. I think the first entrepreneur to hold that role in history, in the 60-year history of CBI. I'm the first ethnic minority individual to hold that role, a first relatively younger person to hold that role. And again, that's a phenomenal privilege. And what a great team the CBI has. And so people don't realize, an international organization. It's headquartered here in the UK, throughout the countries, the regions, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, all around England, but also offices in Washington, offices in Brussels, offices in Beijing, offices in Delhi. So an international organization as well. So representing British business in Britain, but for Britain around the world.
Karan, I have to ask, I mean, like, with the number of things that you're doing, I've got a bit of a light question and then perhaps a little bit more of a reflective one. So the first one is, do you actually sleep, and for how many hours a night? And the second one then is join the dots for us, because I would love to hear how, you know, a bit about the journey, about how you actually were able to get to the position that you're on, perhaps some of the hurdles and lessons along the way.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sleep, by the way, it's a very individual thing. So there's no point in me saying I can get by on 4 hours of sleep a night which I do from time to time. I don't recommend it. I think you should try and get a good 6 hours if you can. But I know that when I go through those days when it's 4 hours or sometimes even 3 hours, 5 hours at a stretch, you do need to catch up at least once a week. So, it's important to be balanced, and exercise is very important. I really do believe that it is important to stay fit, and also to be able to switch off. That's the other challenge. I think many people find it difficult to switch off. And I do find I can work until 11 o'clock at night, and then I can just stop, sit down, grab a Cobra beer and watch some television for an hour and switch off, and then go to sleep, hit the pillow and go to sleep. So that helps to be able to do that. And also the ability, when you're doing lots of different things during the day, is to be able to switch on and off from one world to another. So you're absolutely immersed in a CBI issue. The next minute you're speaking in a debate in Parliament. The next minute you're dealing with something with Cobra Beer. The next minute you're dealing with something University of Birmingham. So the ability to be able to switch off and switch on to different matters, and yet keep going. These are things I suppose one learns with experience. And when it comes to journey, I think it's to me, first and foremost, education was the most important thing. So both sides of my family, going back to both my grandfathers were educated here in the UK. My mother went to university here. And so I knew from my early childhood I would come to study in England. It was just a matter of course. And I found that was really important. And it was while I was studying, I'd already had a degree from India. Before I came here, I skipped my A-levels. I had a lucky break, and I graduated at 19, came here, qualified as a chartered accountant, which with what is today Ernst & Young with EY. And that was great training. I mean, I knew about halfway through I didn't want to be an accountant for the rest of my life, but I valued what I was learning, and I valued the professional training and qualification. And it's really been useful. And then I did a law degree at Cambridge. And again, I really, really enjoyed that. I enjoyed my time there, and law has been a very useful subject to learn. And that's when I came up with my business idea for Cobra Beer while I was a student. And then you take that decision, that leap, to not be a banker, not be an accountant, not be a lawyer, and to actually go and start your own business. And that does take guts. And I think entrepreneurs, there's one word that sums up entrepreneurs more than any other, is they have guts. They have the guts to do it in the first place, which means giving up all the other opportunities you may have, and career opportunities, but they also have the guts to stick with it when others would give up. And then it was a journey of starting with no money, just two of us, my business partner Arjun Reddy and I, starting with nothing, and a 295-pound battered old car called Albert, a Citroën de Chevaux. And that's how we started going door to door to the restaurants, selling them.
You mentioned along the way nearly losing the business 3 times, I think you said.
Yes.
Can you give us a bit of an insight about the ups and downs through those times?
Yes, I think, again, it's very relevant to the crisis that we're living in now. Who would have predicted in December, let alone, I'd say January, that we'd have a global pandemic where the whole world would come to a standstill, where we'd be in the worst recession ever, where the economy's gone down by over 20% in this country? Who would have predicted that in January or December? So most crises come out of nowhere, and they're not necessarily predictable. And I found that the 3 times were very different. The 3 times I couldn't necessarily have predicted. It's a question of how you deal with the crises that is important. And that I've learned, having reflected on it, can be quite consistent. And it applies to a country as much as it applies to a business, whatever size that business is. And I found that the 3 things that managed to get me through each of those crises, although they were all very different. One was having a strong brand. And I think having a strong brand is so important. And what is a brand? I mean, with Molson Coors, when I joined and we'd had the joint venture, I remember we had a secret meeting at a hotel, one of those airport hotels near Heathrow, so no one would know we were having this meeting. And I remember in that meeting, they said, we want to do this deal, joint venture with Cobra, for 3 reasons. 1, we like you, the entrepreneur, we want you to stay on as chairman permanently. 2, we like your team, and we'd like your team to join us. And 3, you have an extraordinary brand. And I said, oh, thanks for the compliment. They said, no, we actually categorize an extraordinary brand as having certain characteristics. So one is, an extraordinary brand is based on an undeniable brand truth. In our case, that extra smooth, less gassy taste and platform that enables Cobra Beer to be the best beer to go with any food. So brewed smooth for all food. The next is an extraordinary brand lives by and is consistent with its values, never takes any shortcuts. The third thing is extraordinary brand has an instantly recognizable and iconic look. So if I asked all of you to just shut your eyes, you should be able to visualize a bottle of Cobra beer and the Cobra branding or the colors. So the iconic look is important. The fourth is an extraordinary brand delivers a relevant and consistent experience. So no point being a one-day wonder. Can you produce hundreds of millions of bottles and pints of beer a year and have each one of them tasting as good as the last one and the same as the last one? Not easy. It's very, very difficult to do that. Can you, in our case, I'm sorry to boast, 121 gold medals, one of the most awarded beers in the world. I'm really proud of that. The fifth thing is extraordinary brand builds extraordinary brand champions. And this is the most important one. When you've got that, you've cracked it. You've got people who love your brand, who seek out your brand, who disappoint you when it's not available or not stocked or out of stock. And finally, an extraordinary brand delivers extraordinary profits. And there's no point doing all this unless it delivers the results. So we have an extraordinary brand, and I think you apply that to the UK as a country. We as a country are an extraordinary country. 1% of the world's population, and just look at the strengths of this country. Hardly any natural resources. North Sea oil and gas is diminishing. So what have we got? We've got phenomenal capabilities as a country. We've got institutions that are embedded in this country that in many cases are centuries old. They're not difficult. You can't switch on those things. We've got value and cultures and best universities in the world along with America, the financial services, our culture, our music, our cinema, our art, our museums, our advertising agencies, the best in the world, our lawyers, our accountants, our manufacturing, our advanced manufacturing, our aerospace industry, our beer, you name it. We have the best capabilities in the world and a great brand and a global brand. We're not a superpower, but we're a global power with influence, with hard power and soft power. So you've got a strong brand that can help you get through. Next is you've got to have a great team. And I've got wonderful, loyal team members, many of who've been with me, some over 25 years. People like Samson Sohail, my head of sales, my right-hand person. Without his support, I wouldn't be here talking to you. My wife, if you have family that supports you. My wife, I met her 1 year after I started Cobra. She's been by my side through all the ups and downs of this journey. And without her support, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So the support of your team and your family, if you have family to support you. And finally, actually, probably the most important is the right values. You get through a crisis if you operate with integrity. And it's better to fail doing the right thing than to succeed doing the wrong thing. And again, Britain, if you think about it as a country that has historically been respected for its values. Where do people come for the fairest trial with the best courts and the best judges and the best lawyers in the world? They come to the UK. So the UK has these three characteristics. So I think as a country we can endure this crisis as I have been able to with my company with these three things: brand, team and family support, and values and integrity.
Karan, what an awesome answer. And I love those 3 points. Just for everyone who's watching in, remember to post your favorite quote from Karan. He's already given us some amazing gems. So post from quotes from Karan to win that £50 Amazon voucher. Karan, a lot of people ask me pretty often, being an entrepreneur myself, is now a good time to start a business? And I would love to get your point of view as to what you think. And two, what are some of the skills or attitudes that someone needs at this point in time if they were going to go down that road?
There is always a good time to start a business. I started in a recession. Now, look at the opportunities that are presenting themselves to us. There are people who are sadly losing their jobs. The way we're flattening the health curve, we've got to flatten the unemployment curve as well. And sadly, there has already been unemployment. There may be more. We hope not. But people are starting businesses. People are seeing opportunities even now. With the Indian restaurants, for example, they were in such a difficult position, the curry restaurants. We supply 7,000 restaurants. And from the lockdown, basically a few of them did takeaways, but on the whole, their businesses were shut for months. And people saying, oh, thousands of restaurants will never reopen. You know what we found when we did the analysis? They're so resilient as an industry. They suffered so much. They were doing voluntary deliveries to the NHS, preparing meals when they had no revenue and going and personally delivering them to the local hospitals, to the nurses, to the doctors, to staff of the hospitals. We had a promotion for saving for COVID-19 victims in South Asia with the Prince of Wales's charity, the British Asian Trust. Here are restaurants who opened up to do takeaways, to have the big curry night in, and we raised tens of thousands of pounds. And even in adversity, if you've got the right values you want to put back in the community and you're resilient. So what happened at the end of all this? We analyzed it. more restaurants have opened up in this period than have closed down. And it's less than 50 restaurants that have actually closed down. And they're so resilient. And people are opening restaurants at a time when you think you're going to be, thousands of them are going to be shut. So that's resilience. That's people seeing opportunity. That's pioneering entrepreneurship that I could see in my own industry, in my own business. So I think they're great opportunities. I think people need to look for them. And what are the basics? The basics are you're going to be spotting something where you are dissatisfied as a consumer, for example, and you think you can do it differently, you can do it better. I mean, I hated fizzy lagers. I love real ale, but I couldn't drink real ale with food, and I couldn't drink fizzy lager on its own, let alone with food. And I said, let me produce a beer that has the refreshment of a lager, the smoothness of an ale combined, that will go with all food and be really, thank you, there we are. And we'll go with all food and have a globally appealing taste. And that's how I came up with the idea for Cobra Beer, in an industry, beer, that has been around for millennia. I mean, the big famous beer brands have been around for hundreds of years. Stella Artois, the 14th century. Kronenberg, 1664. Grolsch is 400 years old. So, you can still come up with something different and better, even in a really well-established ancient industry like beer. Look at now the phenomenal opportunities that we have with technology, with communication, with travel. There's so much that we can come up with different, better. And again, what is the best definition of luck? I've attended 3 business schools through executive education: Cranfield School of Management, London Business School, and Harvard Business School. And the best definition of luck I've heard is in the Harvard Business School classroom. Luck is when determination meets opportunity. If you're not determined, you will not even see that opportunity. And serendipity. Now, Mark Durand, one of our rock star professors at Cambridge Business School, defines serendipity as seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. Seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. So you can get lucky if you're determined. And there are lots of opportunities, even in this time of adversity. And to your question, Richie, the most important thing I've found in life is when we hire people as well, we hire for will rather than skill. Ideally both, but it's the will that's more important. It's the attitude that is the most important thing.
You've given us a little insight into how you came up with the taste and the recipe, which is so synonymous with the brand. I've got a question that builds on that from Elizabeth, which is, how did you come up with the idea for Cobra itself? So was it a eureka moment, the name itself, or researched, or something that evolved?
So we're talking about the name specifically.
The name specifically.
Yeah. So and now, again, there's so many lessons I could share with you on this journey. And one of my favorite sayings is, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So you've got to make those mistakes and learn from the mistakes. And one of my first mistakes was to do with the name. We could have chosen any name, and the brewery said, look, we don't have a suitable name for you. We'll make the beer, come to the brewery, work with our brewmaster, develop this beer from scratch. We don't have the recipe you're looking for. We literally create it from scratch and come up with your own name. So we went through hundreds of names, brainstorming sessions, and we chose a name. I went to the brewery. They introduced us to their printers. We handed in the artwork, and quite frankly, I forgot about the name, and I focused on getting this liquid and the beer right. And then when it came to bottling, my partner Arjun, who was holding the fort in London, said, Karan, I'm trying to pre-sell the container before you ship it. And I said, great, well done. And he said, I can't sell a single bottle. I said, what's wrong? He said, they don't like the name. I said, what's wrong with the name? The name we had chosen was Panther, as in leopard. And I can picture the label. It was the eye of a black panther, very coolly designed. And what's wrong with Panther? Why don't they like Panther? He said, I don't know. They don't like it. So then I said, well, we went on with discussion for a while, saying, well, who cares what they think? It's our brand, it's our name. And this went on for a while. And then he said, look, we can carry on, but I won't be able to sell it. So then we said, okay. I remember we had a debate. There was a name that came a close second. And I can't remember the name. Just look up the list. And he said, I've already done that. It was Cobra. I said, yes, I remember Cobra. That was it. I'll tell you what, you go and ask these same people, will they buy the beer if it's called Cobra? I'll go to the printers to see if they printed the labels. The next morning on the way to the brewery, first time and only time in my life, I went hoping something was not done. Normally you're chasing something to be done. And have you printed those Panther beer labels? And they said, no, we're waiting for the brewery to tell us, don't print them. And within 24 hours, Arjun got back to me and said, they love the name Cobra. And you see the lesson learned, and of course, my brother had an advertising agency in Hyderabad. I said, Nadir, please help. I need the Cobra beer, new label designed from scratch. I flew over to Hyderabad. His team dropped tools, and we designed the Cobra beer label from scratch. the bottling was delayed, the shipment was delayed. It's the best decision I made. And the lesson I learned, there was an entrepreneur, you come up with the idea, but never go forward with your idea without testing it with your customers and your consumers first. And of course, now we do such detailed research. We come up with the ideas, but we get what our customers, our consumers think before we go ahead with them. And what a name. Cobra has just turned out to be such a phenomenal name. It's our most valuable asset. It's short, sharp, punchy. It takes you back to that part of the world, to South Asia, to India. And it's memorable. And it has this impression that it's cool and contemporary, but yet it's really well established. People think it's been around for centuries.
Well, you've given us a real gift, because I think most people will assume that was the name that was meant to be in that 24-hour pivot. It's quite a story. I'm sure you've had many pivot moments, but what would you say is if possible, your greatest triumph along this amazing road you've taken?
My greatest triumph, I would say is actually, yes, I'm really proud to have built a household name that everyone in this country knows. Every corner of the UK, people know Cobra. They love the brand. They love the beer. And I'm very proud of that. And that is something that is there forever. And that it does make me very, very proud, from nothing to have done that with no money, with no experience in the industry. But I suppose what's really important to me is my family and my wife and my 4 children, and to see them grow up, and they've grown up as the beer has grown up. I can remember my older daughter, when she was 5 years old, standing on a case of Cobra beer saying, "I'm going to be the boss of Cobra beer one day." So who knows? but it's my family that's so important to me. And I think this is where whatever one's doing in life, however busy you are, whatever your career is, you've got to get your priorities right. And family's always got to come first.
Karan, I want to touch on your political duties around being a lord. I mean, is there a story behind how that happened? And what are some of the key things that you're driving for and striving for as part of that? It's just such a phenomenal thing to be a part of your repertoire.
I think that if you look back, do you have an interest in politics as an individual, an interest in wanting to make a difference, to take part? And you look back at your career, and some people who get involved in student politics, right from school days, university days, others don't. And for me, I started debating at boarding school in India when I was 14 years old. And I found that looking back on it, that was such a great opportunity that I was given. To be able to start in front of the whole school, being able to debate and then representing your school. I then went on to carry that on at university in India. And at Cambridge, I debated for the Cambridge Union, and I led the Cambridge Union in our varsity debate against Oxford 2 years running. And one of my friends, who became a good friend, and my opponent was Michael Gove, who was the head of the Oxford Union debating team. So, that debating and student politics was something I was very interested in. And then when I started my business, of course, it's head down for the first 7-8 years, just building my business. And in that period, I remember I was given the opportunity to stand as a member of parliament. And I had to make that decision. Am I going to do this? Am I going to stand as a member of parliament? In which case my business may never take off, because I will have to sacrifice my business for that. Or do I focus on my business? I made the decision that and I know I made the right decision in focusing on my business. And later on, I realized as I got more involved that, there is another way of doing this, and I could be a member of the House of Lords and as an independent crossbench peer. So I sit as an independent. I'm not a member of any political party. And so you can say exactly what you want to. Each vote, you can do exactly what you feel on that issue, and you don't have to toe any party line, and you can be independent in everything you do. And that I've done that for 14 years. I find it hugely valuable. I love it, being able to challenge government, being able to come up with ideas and present them and make a difference.
You mentioned, I was intrigued by you saying you think you've not even got started yet. I think you said 60 odd markets. And so going back to Cobra, how far does this go? Where's next? What's the pipeline, the roadmap?
Part of being an entrepreneurial journey is non-stop, restless innovation. And you are restless. You're never satisfied. You're always striving for perfection. You always want to do more, come up with new ideas. So, and with Cobra Beer, you might not know it as a consumer. I'm constantly perfecting the product in every way that I can. You wouldn't even notice it. But without changing any of the fundamentals, you're constantly trying to perfect and improve the basic product without in any way changing the fundamentals. Side by side, you're trying to come up with new ideas, new products. So, for example, we came out with a non-alcoholic Cobra, Cobra Zero. We've come out with a gluten-free Cobra. We've then brought out a beer we brew in Belgium at one of the most famous breweries. It would be the sort of Ferrari or Lamborghini of breweries in Belgium, a 200-year-old brewery, where we brew King Cobra in a champagne bottle, double fermented. So the beer, lager beer, double fermented with an ale yeast, unpasteurized with an 18-month shelf life. It's just the most phenomenal product. We've come up with that. And then we've come up now with an India Pale Ale. So with the whole craft beer boom, what I found is I love that. I love the fact that we've got thousands of craft breweries now, lots of variety of beer. But I found there's a gap. And the gap is a lot of these craft beers, the majority of them are IPAs, India Pale Ales. And the majority of the IPAs, not a majority, just about all of them, are just too bitter in their taste. And they don't go with food at all. And a lot of them are so bitter that you've struggled to finish a whole glass, let alone a pint. I said, well, how can I produce an IPA? And I'm an Indian beer, originally a beer of Indian origin. How can we produce an IPA that is so smooth and drinkable and yet is a traditional ale that goes with all food as well as Cobra Beer does? And we've done it. And we've created Malabar Blonde IPA from Cobra that is the most drinkable IPA in the world by far. So it's, and I've got another two ideas in the pipeline at the moment as well, which are revolutionary ideas that we're working on.
Karan, you talk a lot about the new ideas, constantly looking at, and the term that I think you kind of used a few times was it's the gap. How do you identify? Are you walking around kind of constantly looking for this new gap in ideas? How does that kind of come to you? It feels like it's just natural that you kind of identify things and then go and do them.
Well, you will always spot gaps in the market and a market in the gap. So that's what you've got to constantly do. And if you are, it's having this attitude that what I spoke about, serendipity. You're seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought, because you're in that mindset. You're determined. You're trying to get lucky. You're trying to see those opportunities. And because you're determined, you hopefully see some of these opportunities. And it's also being passionate about what you do. I have my, you do this fantastic work with marketing, with your school of marketing. With marketing, I think is crucial. The ability to sell is so important. It's one of the most important skills in life. And I think everybody should learn how to sell. And I remember looking back on it. When did I learn how to sell? When I was at Cambridge, standing for the Cambridge Union elections, you'd have to go door to door. And all you had were the number of room numbers of everyone who's a member of the Cambridge Union. And then you had to knock on a door to a complete stranger and convince them to vote for you. They're selling. So, and then there was no shortcut to the hard work. You had to go, whether it was rain or snow, on your bike, college to college, up and down staircases, and put in the hard work. And sales means hard work. And sales means convincing people to do something or buy something. The ability to sell is very important. Then marketing is so important. I have my 10 P's of building a business. So one is obviously the product. And you've got to have the right product at the right price. You've got to promote it. And at the right place. You've got to have it available. And those are the classic 4 P's of marketing. But I also have my extra P's. People. Most important thing in any business, whether it's B2B, B2C, services, manufacturing, people. My 6th P is finance, spelled PH. Without the money, you can't do anything. So, you've got to have finance. Finance is really important. Next is passion. Don't do it unless you're absolutely passionate about it. So many people live out their lives in a career just because they're working to earn a living, as opposed to working because they love every minute of what they're doing and they're passionate about it. Follow your passion, not your pension. The next thing is actually partnership. Have the partnership, the partnership attitude that I've spoken about earlier. The 4th thing is principles. Make sure that you do everything the right way with integrity and the right values. And finally, profit. it's got to deliver results. So those are my 10 P's of building a business, and applies to any business at any time.
You mentioned restlessness, and that comes across in spades. Nature or nurture? Where do you think that restlessness comes from?
With anything in life, there's some people who have a natural propensity or talent, whether it's being a musician or an artist or a sports person. But I do think you can actually train anything, including entrepreneurship. And a lot of it is making people aware of it. And I think one of the best examples of this, if we were in an audience, I would ask a question quite often that I ask in audiences around the world: how many of you think you're creative? And on average, less than half the hands in an audience anywhere in the world will go up. Just under half the hands go up. And the reason I ask that question is because I was told as a child at school, Karan, you are academically doing very well. Keep going. You should do well, but you're not creative. Why? Because I was useless at art and I was hopeless at painting. And I mean, I'm useless. Not creative. I was forced to learn the piano. I passed grade 1. Please give up. Spare us. You're tone deaf. So, I was just told, and I believed I was not creative all through my youth. It's only when I became an entrepreneur and started my business that I realized that I'm actually really very creative and actually have it in spades, and it had been suppressed throughout my youth. So if only we could encourage our children from a very young age to have that confidence, to realize that they are creative, they can be creative, whether they become a civil servant or whether they go into marketing. That ability to be creative and innovative is one of the most powerful skills in life, and we all have it. It just needs to be exposed, nurtured, encouraged, and what a difference that would make. I think our GDP would grow exponentially if the whole country had the confidence to be creative.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I heard that it all goes wrong at the age of 7, where schools tell kids to put down the crayons and the musical instruments and start to get serious, and then at that point in time stop practicing those muscles. Lovely to think of creativity in so many different dimensions. Richie, conscious of time, and any further question, final question from you maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Karan, I could talk to you all day, as you know, but there's a lot of young people at the moment going through turmoil, to be honest, A-level disaster zones and all sorts of things around the environment. It'd just be great to get just an insight or two from you about what advice would you give them at this moment in time before we close up.
Thank you. And just before we finally close, there are 2 messages I'd like to leave everyone with. So let me know that time and I'll just say these final words. But to answer this specific question, I think there is no running away from what a horrible time just about everyone has gone through. I despair when I think of what the children with GCSEs and BTECs and A-levels have just had to go through. I know of so many individual cases of children losing out on their places at their universities of choice. And it just seems so unfair. And what I've learned from a very young age, again, if we had time, I would tell you some story about when I discovered really that I had the traits of being an entrepreneur, is you can have a sort of rebellious attitude to things, but you can complain. You can complain as much as you want to. Where's that going to get you? You can be dissatisfied as much as you want to. Where's that going to get you? It's if you convert that complaining and dissatisfaction into doing something about it. And that's the challenge, is if you can have that mindset where you say, right, I'm unhappy with this. This is not fair. This is not right. I've suffered as a result of this. No one can deny that. But what are you going to do about it? And if you take that attitude of what am I going to do about it, that's when you convert obstacles into opportunities. And again, if we had time, I could tell you example after example, the Cobra Beer journey of the number of obstacles we had, starting off with the big bottle Cobra, that converting that obstacle into an opportunity and being a first mover. And to this day, that big bottle Cobra is our number 1 selling SKU and the best selling big bottle on the supermarkets. And everyone does big bottles with Peroni or Heineken. And we were the first movers in that area. So I could give you lots of examples.
Karan, that's a phenomenal piece of advice. That's absolutely brilliant. Karan, we're gonna run out of time now, so I would love to get your closing thoughts before we have to close.
So two things, if I may. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this, and thank you for all your great questions, and I've enjoyed the discussion immensely. One is I think it's very, very important is never stop learning and always be curious. So one of my favorite sayings of Mahatma Gandhi's, which my younger son, in fact, told me, is live as if you're going to die tomorrow, learn as if you're going to live forever. So that learning never stops. And that, by the way, it's one of the best things of all the things that I do. I learn every day at CBI, House of Lords, at Cobra, at Chancellor of University. I'm learning the whole time. And I love that. And I'm lucky to have the opportunity. Finally, is particularly in this time, at any time, believe in yourselves and have that fundamental belief. Because as Mahatma Gandhi said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits form your character, and your character determines your destiny. So thank you very much.
Amazing, and thank you. Amazing note to end on. And I know, speaking on behalf of Richie, it's been inspiring for both of us, but also for the many people watching in. So I just can't thank you enough. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Richie.
Just as an outro for everybody, for next week on the show, we have PR legend Andrew Block, founder of Frank, which is one of the most well-respected and award-winning agencies. Through the years, Andrew's worked with many celebrities and leaders, perhaps one of the most notable, Sir Alan Sugar. So join us next week and we'll find about his career experiences. But until then, thank you again, Lord Karan, and a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karan.